I have to be honest with you right out of the gate here. When I sat down to read the premise of the book we're covering today, I actually felt a little bit defensive.
Defensive. That's a strong word for a book about cognitive science. What was it?
Well, just think about how we've all been trained to learn. My whole life, I had a system. I'd read the textbook, I'd get my neon yellow highlighter, and I'd just paint the page with it.
Oh, yeah. The highlighter method. Very familiar.
And then before a test, I just reread it and reread it. And eventually, I'd get this warm, fuzzy feeling that I knew the material. It felt productive.
It's completely intuitive. I mean, that is how almost everyone studies. Practice, practice, practice.
Right. But the source material we're looking at today basically just grabs that highlighter and says, stop, you're wasting your time. My whole strategy was built on a lie.
It is a bit of a shock to the system. But you are not alone in that. The book we are doing a deep dive into today is Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning.
And that's by Peter C. Brown, Henry L. Roediger III, and Mark A. McDaniel.
Exactly. And we should probably say, this isn't some dry academic paper. Brown is a storyteller, but Roediger and McDaniel, they're the heavy-hitter cognitive scientists. So it reads well, but it's backed by serious research.
Which is what we want. And our mission for this deep dive is really to dismantle what the authors call the illusions of knowing.
Right. To strip away the habits that feel good, like that warm, fuzzy feeling you mentioned,
Yeah.
and replace them with strategies that actually work.
Okay, so let's start with that illusion of knowing, because that is the trap I fell into. Why is rereading my glowing yellow notes such a bad thing? It feels like I'm learning.
That's the trick, isn't it? When you read something for the second or third time, your brain processes it faster. And that ease, that fluency, it convinces you that you've mastered the content.
But I haven't.
No, you've just mastered recognizing the text on the page. You haven't actually built the neural pathways to, recall the concept on its own later.
It's like the difference between singing along to a song on the radio and having to sing it a cappella from memory.
That's a perfect analogy. One is recognition, the other is recall. The book uses this great story about a UCLA professor to make the point.
Oh, I loved this. So this guy, he works in the psychology building, right? For 25 years.
A quarter of a century, walking the same hallways every single day.
So researchers ask him a really simple question. Where is the nearest fire extinguisher to your office? And you'd think, of course he knows this, he's seen it thousands of times, but
It blanks completely.
he has no idea.
Yeah.
So he goes out to look for it, and it turns out the extinguisher is literally inches from the doorknob he turns every single morning.
But he never learned it. That's the danger of just repetitive exposure. It's like seeing a penny. You've seen thousands, but could you draw one from memory? Which way is Lincoln facing?
Probably not. That is actually terrifying, because if just seeing something over and over doesn't work, then going over my notes is useless.
In that UCLA example, the stakes are low. But the book contrasts it with a story where the stakes were, well, life and death.
Right, the pilot, Matt Brown. This is where the difference between familiarity and mastery gets really visceral.
Yeah, this story had my palms sweating.
So Matt's flying a Cessna 401 at night. He's over Texas. And bang, he loses the starboard engine.
And in a light twin-engine plane like that, when you lose an engine, the asymmetrical thrust wants to flip you upside down. Immediately.
So he's in the dark, the plane is trying to roll over on him, and he has seconds. Imagine if his training was just rereading the manual. He might recognize the page on engine failure.
Oh yeah, I remember highlighting that paragraph. Useless.
Totally useless. He needed to execute a whole sequence, feathering the prop, managing the yaw instantly, from memory. He couldn't stop to think.
He didn't need to recognize the information. He needed to retrieve it, manipulate it, and apply it under extreme pressure.
That is true learning, knowledge that's there when things go wrong.
Okay, so we've established that rereading and highlighting are maybe not the best use of our time.
They're security blankets, so what's the alternative? What actually works?
The alternative is retrieval practice.
Which, let's be honest, sounds like a fancy way of saying take a test. And I think most people hear that and immediately tune out. Tests are stressful.
I get the resistance. We think of testing as just a measurement, like a dipstick for knowledge. You teach, then you test to see if it's stuck. But the science shows the act of testing is the learning.
Wait, explain that. How does checking the oil actually add more oil to the engine?
Because the brain isn't a gas tank. It's more like a muscle. When you struggle to recall a fact, that effort of digging for it actually changes the memory. It reconsolidates it, makes the neural connection stronger.
So you're not just measuring the memory, you're literally making it stronger by trying to access it.
Exactly. Every time you retrieve it, You make it easier to retrieve in the future. It interrupts the process of forgetting.
The book had some great data on this, right? The Columbia Middle School study.
Yes, and this was in a real classroom, which is key. They took 6th and 8th graders. For some topics, they just had the students restudy the material, the classic review. For others, they used low-stakes quizzing with clickers.
No major grade pressure or anything.
Right, and the result was?
What?
It was dramatic. On the material that was quizzed, students scored a full letter grade higher on the final exam.
A full grade.
Yeah, we're talking the difference between a C+ and an A, just by forcing them to recall information instead of just seeing it again.
That's wild. And it's not just for kids in school. The book has this story about a neurosurgeon, Mike Ebersold, that really drives this home.
Ebersold is a fantastic example. He had this case, a hunter shot in the head. The bullet had lodged against a major vein. Ebersold knew the second he removed that bullet, the patient would bleed out in seconds.
I mean, that's unimaginable pressure.
Exactly. He couldn't say, hold on, let me look that up. He had to rely on a technique he had mentally rehearsed, using a muscle plug to seal the vein.
And the key part, the part that connects back to all this, is how he built that knowledge. It was a habit.
Reflection. After every single surgery, Ebersold would replay it in his mind. What went right? What went wrong? What would I do differently next time?
And that reflection is a form of retrieval practice.
It is. He's forcing his brain to retrieve the events, analyze them, and store them again with new context. That's how you build what he calls reflexive knowledge. So when that crisis hits, the solution is just there.
So for anyone listening, this means you don't need a formal test. Just thinking on your drive home, what did I actually learn in that meeting? That counts.
It's one of the most powerful things you can do.
Okay, so we need to pull information out, not just stuff it in. But the authors also talk about timing. And this is where my college self gets attacked again. I was a crammer, 8 hours straight in the library with energy drinks and one textbook.
Massed practice. It's the go-to strategy, and it's one of the least effective for long-term memory.
But it feels so productive. At the end of that 8 hours, you feel like you've mastered it.
That's the illusion again. You're holding it all in your short-term working memory, but it evaporates. To make it stick, you need spaced practice. You have to break it up.
Which means you have to let yourself get a little rusty between sessions.
Yes, and that feels awful. If you study, wait 2 days, and then try to recall it, you're going to forget things. You'll struggle. And you'll feel like you're doing worse than the person who's cramming.
But that struggle is the point.
The struggle is the biological trigger. The brain basically says, oh, this was hard to find. I better reinforce the pathway to this information. If it's too easy, the brain doesn't bother.
It's like lifting weights. If you only lift a 1-pound dumbbell, your muscles don't grow. You need some resistance.
Precisely. And that leads directly to the next big idea, which is interleaving, mixing up your practice.
The baseball study was the perfect example of this.
The Cal Poly study, yep. They took the baseball team, split them in two. Group A got block practice, 15 fastballs in a row, then 15 curveballs, then 15 changeups.
And they probably felt great. They got in the groove.
They did. Okay, another curveball. I know what to do. They looked fantastic in practice.
And then there was Group B.
Group B got random pitches. Fastball, changeup, curveball, fastball. No pattern at all. They were frustrated. They felt like they were failing because they couldn't find a rhythm.
But then came the test. The game.
And Group B destroyed Group A. It wasn't even close.
Why?
Because in a real game, the pitcher doesn't tell you what's coming. Group A learned how to hit a curveball when they knew a curveball was coming. Group B learned how to discriminate. They learned how to see the pitch, identify it, and then select the right swing.
That's a huge distinction. Blocked practice gives you the answer before the problem. Interleaving forces you to diagnose the problem first.
And that applies to everything: math, languages, medicine. If you're only doing one type of problem, you're not learning to think. You're just executing a procedure.
The beanbag experiment also showed this, right? With motor skills.
The bucket toss. So good.
Right.
One group of kids practiced throwing beanbags into a bucket 3 feet away. The other group practiced on buckets 2 feet away and 4 feet away, but never at 3 feet.
And then they tested everyone on the 3-foot bucket.
And the kids who had never practiced at 3 feet were better at it.
Which is so counterintuitive.
You'd think. But the mixed practice group developed a more flexible skill. They learned to adjust. They built what the authors call a movement vocabulary.
This all falls under this umbrella term they use, desirable difficulties.
Coined by Robert and Elizabeth Bjork. And the idea is just what it sounds like. Learning should feel hard. If it feels easy, you're probably not learning much.
And one of the coolest parts of this is the generation effect, trying to answer a question before you're shown the solution.
Even if you get it wrong.
Right. If I ask you the capital of Australia, you should struggle with it for a second. Guess, is it Sydney? Melbourne?
That struggle primes your mind. It opens up a little file folder labeled Capital of Australia. So when you hear the answer is Canberra, it has a place to stick.
I love the story of Bonnie Blodgett, the blundering gardener. She really embodies this.
She's great. She didn't sit down with flashcards of Latin plant names. She just started gardening and making mistakes.
But she ended up learning all the Latin names anyway.
Because she had problems to solve. She needed a plant that would crawl along the ground. So she learned that procumbus means prostrate or crawling. The name became a solution, not just a fact to memorize.
The blundering was the mechanism for learning.
Exactly. The errors were just data.
Okay, speaking of how we learn, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The part of the book that makes people, including me, say, wait, really? Learning styles.
Ah, yes. The idea that I'm a visual learner or I'm an auditory learner.
I mean, I have said this my whole life. Don't just tell me. Show me a diagram. Teachers are trained in this. Are the authors really saying it's all a myth?
They are saying exactly that. And they are backed by a huge amount of research. The idea that you learn better when instruction is matched to your preferred style has basically no evidence to support it.
But I do prefer graphs over long paragraphs. I feel like I learn better that way.
You might prefer it. It might feel easier. But that doesn't mean you retain the information better. In fact, sticking to one style can actually hold you back.
How?
It becomes a crutch. If you tell yourself, I'm not a math person, or I'm an auditory learner, you give yourself permission to check out when something is presented differently. The truth is, the subject matter should determine the style, not the student.
Can you give an example?
If you're learning geometry, you need to see it. It's inherently visual. If you're learning a new language's pronunciation, you need to hear it. An auditory learner trying to learn chemistry just by listening to lectures is going to miss a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. It's just a hard pill to swallow because we love putting ourselves in boxes.
We do. But the book argues the real difference between learners isn't style. It's a skill called structure building.
Okay, let's break this down. What is a structure builder?
Imagine two people reading a really dense history chapter. One person is trying to memorize every single name, date, and location. They're making a long list.
They're drowning in the details.
Right. A structure builder is doing something different. They're looking for the underlying rules, the main argument, the cause and effect. They're building a mental model, a framework that all the little details can hang on.
The book uses the story of Bruce Hendry, the investor, to illustrate this.
A great example. He made a fortune investing in the bankrupt Erie-Lackawanna Railroad.
Which sounds like a terrible idea.
And everyone thought so. The legal documents were thousands of pages long. It was just noise. But Henry went to the library. He wasn't trying to memorize it all. He was looking for the structure, the core rule.
And what did he find?
He found the rule. In a liquidation, senior bonds get paid first. Then he went and walked the tracks. He looked at the assets, the steel, the land, and he built a model in his head.
A model that said what?
That said, the assets are worth more than the debt, and my bonds are first in line to get paid. He saw the simple structure inside the complex mess.
And he bought the bonds for pennies and made a fortune.
That is structure building. It's about finding the signal in the noise.
So if we want to be more like Bruce Hendry and less like the professor looking for the fire extinguisher, let's summarize the toolkit.
Okay, the big shifts. Number 1, stop rereading. Start retrieving. Quiz yourself, use flashcards, explain it to someone else.
Number 2, space out your practice. Let yourself forget a little. Embrace that rusty feeling.
Yes, that feeling is good. It means your brain is working. 3rd, mix it up. Interleave. Don't just practice one thing at a time. It feels harder, but it works better.
And finally, and maybe this is the biggest one, change your relationship with difficulty.
This is the emotional takeaway.
Yeah.
We hit a wall, we get confused, and we think, I'm just not smart enough for this.
And this research flips that on its head. Confusion isn't a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're engaged. The struggle is how you learn.
It's like being sore after a workout. You don't think, oh no, I failed at exercise. You think, good, it's working. We need to view mental struggle the same way. It's the feeling of growth.
And we have to be honest with ourselves. The Dunning-Kruger effect is real. We're terrible judges of our own competence.
We really are. We need objective feedback. We need tests and quizzes and even failures to keep us honest and show us where the gaps are.
So, to the listener, go out there and get a little confused. Struggle with something new. Because that feeling isn't the prelude to failure. That's the feeling of making it stick.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.